You think you're so damn smart? My mom's voice cracked through the apartment like a gunshot. Then pay your own bills. The words didn't just hurt. They landed with intent, sharp, calculated, meant to leave a mark. I was still standing in the doorway, keys barely off the hook, my uniform clinging to me with the smell of fryer grease and old oil. My shoes were soaked from mopping the back hallway twice because the closing kid quit mid-shift. My legs were trembling, the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones and makes your thoughts move slow. Before I could even process what she'd said, she shoved a stack of envelopes into my chest. Not gently. Not accidentally. Like evidence in a courtroom. Final notices. Disconnect warnings. Red stamps screaming past due. She didn't ask how long my shift was. Didn't ask if I'd eaten. Didn't even look tired herself. She just stared at me like I was the reason her life never worked out. I paid the last two already, I said, my voice barely holding together. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just bitterness. So, she snapped. That doesn't fix the rest. I looked up at her then. Really looked. The deep lines around her mouth. The tight jaw. The eyes that always looked like they were searching for someone to blame. If you're so educated, she continued, stepping closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. So independent. So grown up. Prove it. She leaned in. Pay your own damn bills. Something inside me finally snapped, but not the way it does in movies. There was no screaming. No dramatic crying. No throwing things. It was quieter than that. Like the moment a rope finally frays after years of pulling. For as long as I could remember, my life had been split between school, work, and cleaning up messes that weren't mine. I worked mornings, studied afternoons, closed nights. Every paycheck went straight to her. Rent. Utilities. Emergencies that never seemed to end. And she still talked to me like I was useless. That night, guilt didn't show up. Anger did. Cold. Focused. Clear. I didn't say another word. I walked past her down the narrow hallway, ignoring how she scoffed behind me. My room felt smaller than usual, like it knew something was ending. I grabbed my backpack and started shoving things in without thinking, clothes, my laptop, my charger. At the last second, I paused and picked up the old photo from my shelf. Me and my dad at the county fair, years took the light with him. My hands were shaking. My mind wasn't ago, before he disappeared and... She followed me fast, her footsteps sharp on the floor. Where the hell do you think you're going? You told me to pay my own bills, I said quietly. So I'm going to live my own life. She opened her mouth, probably to yell, maybe to threaten, but I didn't wait. I stepped outside. Didn't slam the door. Didn't look back. That night, I slept on my friend Jess's couch. The cushions were lumpy, the blanket smelled like detergent and coffee, and the room glowed faintly from a streetlight outside. You actually left, Jess whispered from her recliner. I didn't think you ever would. Neither did I. I stared at my phone, waiting for it to explode. Calls. Texts. Accusations. Nothing. And that silence felt worse than yelling. Because even though I was gone, my name was still tied to everything. The lease. The power. The internet. If she stopped paying, it wouldn't hit her first. It would hit me. A few days later, I went back to the apartment while she was out, just to grab the rest of my stuff. The place felt wrong, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. That's when I saw the envelope on the kitchen table. My name. Printed clearly. Not hers. Mine. My stomach dropped. Inside was a final notice, but not for utilities. It was for a credit card I had never opened. I flipped through the pages, my heart pounding. Thousands in charges. Stores I'd never been to. Late-night food orders. Cash withdrawals. Another envelope. Another account. And another. I felt dizzy. I didn't even remember leaving. I just knew that moments later, I was back at Jess's place, dumping the envelopes across the table like crime scene evidence. She opened cards in your name? Jess asked, her face pale. She's my mom, I said automatically. But the words tasted wrong. That night, I pulled my credit report. And everything finally made sense. The missed payments. The declined applications. The constant feeling of being behind before I even started. She hadn't just borrowed my money. She'd borrowed my future. And in that moment, something shifted. This wasn't about leaving anymore. This was about survival. And the next move I made would change everything. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on Jess's couch with my laptop balanced on my knees, the glow of the screen burning my tired eyes while the city outside slowly went quiet. Every time I thought I'd reached the bottom of what my mom had done, another line item appeared, another account, another balance, another reminder that my name had been used like a credit card she never planned to pay off. Store cards. A personal loan. 2 maxed-out credit lines I didn't even recognize. My credit score looked like it had been pushed off a cliff. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. This wasn't just irresponsible. This wasn't desperation. This was a fraud. I closed the laptop and pressed my palms into my eyes, trying to slow my breathing. Part of me still wanted to excuse it. To soften it. To tell myself she had no choice. That she was struggling. That she was still my mom. But another part of me, the one that had walked out without looking back, was done lying to itself. By sunrise, I had screenshots saved, statements downloaded, dates written down in a notebook Jess handed me without a word. Later that morning, I went back to the apartment one last time. Not to argue. Not to confront her. Just to gather proof. The place looked the same as always, cluttered counters, empty bottles in the trash, unpaid mail shoved into a drawer like it might disappear if ignored long enough. In her bedroom, tucked inside a shoebox under the bed, I found it. Photocopies of my ID. Old mail addressed to me. Pre-approved credit offers opened and circled in pen. My hands started shaking again. This wasn't a mistake. This was a system. She'd planned it. I took photos of everything and left without touching a single thing. My stomach twisted the whole drive back to Jess's, like I was betraying her just by telling the truth. That afternoon, we went to a free legal aid clinic across town. The woman who met with me listened quietly as I explained. She didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. She just nodded and took notes. This is identity theft, she said finally. And it's serious. There are steps you can take, you don't have to decide everything today, but you do need to act. I swallowed. She's my mother. The woman met my eyes. That doesn't change the law. And it doesn't change the damage. That night, I made the first move. I closed the bank account, the one she had access to just in case. I opened a new one at a different bank and changed my direct deposit before my next shift even ended. I froze my credit. Filed initial disputes. Set alerts on everything. Each step felt terrifying. And powerful. The next day, I called the utility companies. When the electric company rep asked why I wanted my name removed, my throat tightened. But I didn't lie. I no longer live there, I said. And I won't be responsible for future charges. There was a pause. Then typing. Once removed, she said, the remaining account holder will be fully responsible. I closed my eyes. I understand. For the first time in my life, I didn't offer to cover the balance. I didn't ask about payment plans. I didn't apologize. I just hung up. It didn't take long. 3 days later, my phone lit up with her name. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, I answered. "What did you do?" she screamed. "The lights are off. The internet's gone. Are you trying to ruin me?" My heart was pounding, but my voice stayed steady. "I didn't do anything to you. I stopped doing things for you." "You can't do this," she snapped. "Everything's in your name." "Not anymore." There it was. The first crack in her control. She went quiet for a moment, then switched tactics, crying, pleading, blaming. She said I was ungrateful. That she sacrificed everything. That she'd be homeless because of me. For the first time, I didn't absorb it. "I didn't open those cards," I said. "I didn't spend that money. And I'm not fixing this." Her breathing changed. "You wouldn't dare," she said slowly. "I already did," I said. I hung up before she could say anything else. The next week was chaotic. She called relatives. Told them I abandoned her. That I stole money. That I shut off utilities out of spite. People I barely spoke to started texting me, demanding explanations. So I stopped hiding. I sent proof. Statements. Screenshots. Dates. The messages slowed. Then stopped. And just like that, the power shifted. The eviction notice went up on a Tuesday morning. I didn't see it myself at first. I heard about it through my aunt, who called me while I was on my lunch break, her voice tight and uneasy. "They taped something to her door," she said. Big red letters. 30 days. I closed my eyes and leaned against the brick wall behind the restaurant. The smell of grease and fried onions suddenly made my stomach turn. 30 days. For years, my mom had threatened me with homelessness like it was a curse she could pass down. Now, for the first time, it was real. And it wasn't my problem. That realization didn't make me feel proud. It made me feel hollow. Like something old and heavy had finally fallen off my shoulders, but the skin underneath was still raw. The calls started again that night. Not from her. From everyone else. Family members who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly had opinions. Cousins. Old neighbors. People who knew one version of the story, the one where my mom was a struggling single parent and I was the ungrateful daughter who walked away. I let them talk. Then I sent the proof. One by one. Screenshots. Statements. Fraud reports. Dates. Some apologized. Some went silent. A few doubled down and said, "But she's still your mother." I stopped replying after that. A week before the eviction deadline, she showed up at my job. I was wiping down tables when I felt it, that shift in the air, the kind you get right before something bad happens. I looked up, and there she was, standing near the counter like she belonged there. Her hair was unwashed. Her coat hung off her frame like it was borrowed. For a second, she looked small. Then she saw me. Her face hardened. "You think you won," she said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. My manager glanced over. I forced myself to stay calm. "This isn't the place," I said quietly. She laughed. Sharp. Bitter. "You never cared about the place. You cared about looking better than me." "I cared about surviving," I said. "You made that impossible." She stepped closer. "You're enjoying this? Watching me fall?" "No," I said honestly. "I'm just done catching you." For a moment, she looked like she might cry. Then she did something unexpected. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. "You think you're so prepared," she said. "You think you're clean in all this. My stomach dropped. She slid papers onto the counter. Old documents. Forms I barely remembered signing years ago. You signed these, she said. You agreed to help. You agreed to be responsible. I stared at the pages. They were real, but they weren't what she claimed. Consent forms twisted by context. Old utility agreements from when I was barely 18. Nothing about credit cards. Nothing about loans. You lied to me, I said. You hid things. And you abandoned me, she shot back. My manager stepped in then, voice firm. Ma'am, you need to leave. She looked around, realizing people were watching. Whispering. That's when the mask finally slipped. She screamed. About how ungrateful I was. How I owed her my life. How she could ruin me if she wanted to. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Security escorted her out while she shouted my name like it was a curse. When the door closed behind her, my knees nearly gave out. That night, I cried for the first time since leaving. Not because I missed her, but because I finally accepted that the mother I wanted wasn't coming back. 2 days before the eviction, she called me from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. They're taking the furniture, she said, her voice small now. They say I can't stop it. I pictured the apartment. The couch where I did homework. The kitchen table where I paid bills she never thanked me for. I'm not coming, I said gently. Silence. I raised you, she whispered. And I raised myself, I replied. The call ended without goodbye. On eviction day, I sat on the floor of my small rented room, my name only on the lease, my money only in my account. I didn't drive by. I didn't watch. But I imagined it anyway. The door opening. Strangers carrying boxes. Her standing there, forced to face what she'd avoided for years. For the first time, the consequences didn't land on me. That evening, a message came through from my aunt. She's gone, it read. I stared at the screen for a long time. I expected relief. What I felt instead was clarity. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't heartless. I was free. And freedom, I was learning, doesn't come quietly. It comes after everything collapses. 2 weeks after the apartment was emptied, life went strangely quiet. No calls. No texts. No angry relatives demanding explanations. It felt like the storm had finally burned itself out, leaving behind an unfamiliar silence. I focused on rebuilding. I worked more shifts. I met with a credit counselor who helped me dispute accounts and map out a recovery plan. I opened a savings account and watched the balance grow for the first time in my life without feeling guilty about it. I slept better. Ate better. Laughed more than I had in years. Freedom didn't feel loud. It felt steady. Then, one night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Emily? A man asked. Yes. This is Officer Ramirez. I'm calling regarding your mother, Vanessa. My heart dropped. For a split second, every old instinct came rushing back, the urge to fix, to rush in, to clean up whatever mess she'd made. But I stayed quiet. She was brought in this afternoon, he continued. No charges at this time. We just need to notify next of kin. What happened? I asked. She was found sleeping in her car behind a grocery store. Someone called it in. The image hit me hard. My mom, alone, curled up in the driver's seat, everything she owned crammed into trash bags. Is she okay? I asked, hating myself for caring. She's safe, he said. But, she asked for you. After the call ended, I sat on my bed staring at the wall. This was it. The moment I'd imagined 100 different ways. The moment where I either went back or didn't. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I drove to the address the officer gave me. Not to rescue her. Not to take her home. Just to see. She was sitting on a bench outside a community outreach center, wrapped in a donated jacket that was clearly too big for her. Her hair was pulled back messily, her face thinner than I remembered. For a second, she looked older. Smaller. Human. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. "I knew you'd come," she said. I didn't sit down. "I'm not here to fix this," I said gently. "I'm here to talk." She nodded, wiping her cheeks with her sleeve. "I messed up," she whispered. The words felt unreal. "I was scared," she said. "After your dad left, everything felt like it was slipping away. When the bills piled up, when the money ran out. I panicked." "You didn't panic," I said quietly. "You chose." She flinched. "I convinced myself you owed me," she admitted. "That you'd leave too if I didn't hold on tight." Her voice cracked. "I didn't think you'd actually walk away." "I had to," I said. "You were destroying me." She nodded. "I know." That was the unexpected part. No yelling. No blaming. No excuses. Just exhaustion. She told me the truth I'd never heard before. About how she'd been turned away from jobs. How the drinking had gotten worse. How she'd been lying not just to me, but to herself. "I thought if I could just get through one more month," she said, "everything would magically fix itself." I believed her. Not because she deserved forgiveness, but because she finally sounded honest. "I filed reports," I told her. "I'm not dropping them." "I wouldn't ask you to," she said. "I deserve whatever happens." That sentence changed everything. I helped her check into a temporary housing program. I gave her a list of resources. I hugged her once, briefly, carefully. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," I replied. "But loving you doesn't mean losing myself." She watched me walk away, and this time, she didn't chase me. Months passed. The fraud cases moved forward. Most of the debt was removed from my record. My credit score slowly climbed back up. I moved into a better apartment. Started school again without fear hanging over my head. One afternoon, I got a letter. Handwritten. It was from her. She thanked me. Not for money. Not for help. For boundaries. "I finally understand," she wrote. "You didn't abandon me. You saved yourself." She'd started counseling. Got a part-time job through the program. She wasn't magically healed, but she was trying. We talk now. Not every day. Not about money. Not about the past unless we're both ready. Our relationship is smaller. But it's real. Here's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop rescuing someone. Sometimes the worst villain in your life isn't evil, just broken and unwilling to heal. And sometimes, the moment you stop paying someone else's bills, is the moment both of you finally start paying attention. She told me to pay my own bills. I did. And in the end, that single sentence changed both of our lives in ways neither of us ever expected.